Welcome everyone to the part two of our Getting Started with Infraworks series. This is the second and final part where we'll be looking at how Infraworks and Civil 3D are linked and how we can bring back into Infraworks our corridors and pipes and things that we've created in Civil 3D so that we can view them in a 3D model. So first of all, why do we want to use Infraworks? And the good thing about Infraworks is it is part of the Autodesk AEC collection. So if you do have that, you've already got access to it. So you might as well start using it. But aside from that, it's really great for our concept design, which is what we discussed in part one of this webinar series. And you can really quickly aggregate a whole bunch of different data sources and quickly create 3D models. It gives you very high quality models that you can use to present projects to clients or to the public, as well as it includes the ability to create animations and videos within it. It works with very many other Autodesk software, which I'll be talking about today, especially the Civil 3D. And it has some different analyses and things inside of it that we can also run, like traffic analysis and things like that. So today what we're going to be looking at is I'll do a quick recap of what happened in part one, just to get everyone up to speed. I'll be continuing on with the same model that we were actually using in part one. So I'll be exactly where we left off. Then we'll start talking about the information exchange. So what happens, what information can go back and forth between Infraworks and Civil 3D. Then we can actually get into an example. So uh, starting from our concept design, I'll show you how you can get that information over to Civil 3D. And then once you've done your detailed design in Civil 3D, we'll look at how we can bring that back to Infraworks so we can view it in the 3D model. And then, of course, how we can share our model out. And I, in particular, will be discussing and show you through how we can make a little video using the tools that are available in Infraworks. So to start off with, a couple of weeks ago, we had Infraworks Part 1 concept design webinar. It is now up on YouTube. You can use that QR code there to have a look. So a bit of a recap of what we did. We started off with Model Builder, which is one of the tools in Infraworks, which is able to aggregate and source a variety of data. So that's really kickstarted our process. Once we had that, we're able to actually start going, okay, let's throw in some roads here, see what we want, and start doing our concept design. So we used our planning roads, concept roads, and we also added in some grading areas to do some earthworks. After that, we wanted to fill out the design and make it look realistic. So we added in buildings, vegetation, and sitting furniture to be able to bring that design to life. So we did that both manually and then we imported some shape files and things like that in order to build up our model. And finally, we discussed about sharing the model, and in that one, we did focus on sharing the web link to the Autodesk viewer, which means that you can share to other people who don't necessarily have Autodesk because that's available to view the 3D model in just a browser. So from that, we're now really focusing on sharing the model, because we can share it with a variety of different Autodesk applications. So at the center of this all, we've got our Infraworks, and we've got a whole bunch of other Autodesk software that can add data into our model, or we can get data out of our model. So these are just some of them, but they include things like Recap, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Revit, Structural Bridge Design, Advanced Steel, Navisworks, Inventor, 3ds Max, and many more. These are just some of the common ones. Today, we're really focusing on the link with Civil 3D, and it is a cyclical exchange. So we can go from Infraworks to Civil 3D, and then we can go from Civil 3D back to Infraworks again. Where we've left off from part one is that we have our concept design. So first thing is, let's get that concept design over into Civil 3D, and then we can start from there to do our detailed design. Before we jump over into Civil 3D and give that a go, there are some terminology that we use across the two softwares. So I've said here it's the same thing, but it's a different name. So in Infraworks, we have terrain surfaces, which is equivalent to the Civil 3D tin surface. A planning road in Infraworks becomes an alignment in Civil 3D. And this goes both ways. So if I've got bring into Infraworks an alignment, it will become a planning road. Component roads are equivalent to corridors. Both softwares have the same intersection object. And then a drainage network in Infraworks is equivalent to a pipe network in Civil 3D. So let's jump over to our Civil 3D. I've just got a blank drawing here, a brand new drawing, and I'm going to bring in my concept design. So I do have an Infraworks tab in my Civil 3D, and in here you can see I've got an import panel with buttons to either import or open an Infraworks model. Or you can use the IMX file, which is like a go-between file. So if you had exported your Infraworks model to an IMX, you could then import it into this Civil 3D. You can also, the next button is to export an IMX from Civil 3D, which you can then import into Infraworks. So it's kind of like just one more step in between. Uh, but I'm going to just open up the model. So I will just go through and find where my model is. This one here. Okay, so just give that a second to read it in there. I can see that being a brand new drawing in Civil 3D, I don't have my coordinate system set, but my Infraworks model does have a coordinate system. So I'm going to click to set, and I'm going to choose the first option, which is to use the coordinate system from the Infraworks model in this Civil 3D drawing. You can change the area that you bring in. So I'm going to bring in my entire Infraworks model, but I could choose a smaller area if I wanted. And you can also change like where your objects are for when they come in. I'm just going to click Open Model now and let that run for a minute. So Civil 3D is reading the model and it's going to bring in all of the items. There we go. That was nice and quick. So straight away, looking at this here, I can see I've got some surfaces. I'm just going to expand out my tool space. You can see it's brought in the NS surface as well as it's brought in the surfaces created when I made my roads. We've got a whole bunch of alignments in here. Those are the planning roads, so they were automatically generated by the model builder. And those have all come in as well. And they are extending past the extents of my model because the surface is the extent of the model. If I zoom in here, I can see that this is actually a corridor. So this is the road that I designed as a component road. So the alignments are the planning roads. This one here I designed as a component road in Infraworks, so it's come over as a corridor. And down below my model here, I've even got all of my assemblies. So this is ready for me now to start doing my concept design. Let's pretend that I've done all that and jump across. Wow, I jumped forward in time. I've done all my detailed design. You can see I've got the corridor set up for the whole a subdivision. I've actually done some earthworks in here. I've got a design surface as well as the natural surface, and I've actually created that natural surface from some survey data. And you can even see the long sections over here because we've got pipe network has been created in here as well. So obviously produce all of your outputs, your sheets that you're going to print out and everything, which is fine if you're handing it to another engineer or to a contractor. But sometimes you want to maybe see it in situ, or you want to share the idea with maybe some upper management who are more interested in a pretty picture or something they can sell to the public. So that's where we might want to go over to our Infraworks. Okay, so with this design all complete, I'm going to close down my Civil 3D and save all my drawings so that then I can open up my Infraworks. You do have to close down Civil 3D in order to import into Infraworks. Right, so let's see what our next slide is. So back to our cyclical exchange between the two. We've done the first way from Infraworks to Civil 3D. Now let's have a look at the other way. So I've got my detailed design. Let's bring that into Infraworks. I'm just loading up my design here. I give it a second and then I'll bring it up on the screen. So here is where we left off at the end of our first webinar or first part one. This is our concept design with all of we've got one component road and the others are all planning roads, but we also brought in all those buildings and some vegetation and things as well. When we started it off, we started with a base map and then we actually created a design concept proposal. So proposals being ways that you can keep separate things and switch back and forth between them. So it's great when you've like, will I go with option one or option two because you've got them both available to you. I want to keep my concept design. I don't want to edit it. So I'm going to make a new proposal for my detailed design. And I'm going to make it from my concept design. So whichever proposal you're currently in when you make a new one is the one that's going to be duplicated. So in my design concept, I'll add a new proposal. And when that's created, it will be an exact copy of my design proposal. Ready. So if we give that a second, it's now saying I'm working on my detailed design. But of course, being an exact copy, I can't actually see any changes right now. What this means is that I'm going to be able to keep all my houses and things. I'm not going to have to re-import them a second time. I am just going to open up what's called Model Explorer. This here lists all the different things that are in my drawing. So I've got a lot of fences, some vegetation, and some things like that. I might want to see them later, but for now I'm focused on the road. So I'm just going to turn some of those things off. Oh, okay. See furniture, linear features, and vegetation at the bottom of the list there. Right. Now I'm all ready to import my Civil 3D drawing. So I'm going to open up the data source panel. You probably recognize this from part one. This is how we bring in all of our different data sources. If I drop down one of the options, I can import a Civil 3D DWG. So I will just go and grab my DWG file there. It's going to take a little second to think through it all. Being a corridor, it's got quite a bit of information. It's got to bring in all the assemblies and everything, you'll notice that you do get to pick what to bring in. So I don't need this surface here. I just want those two surfaces. I'm going to bring in my roads. So that's going to include any alignments as well as any corridors. And I want my pipes to come in as well. So now we're just going to read those things in. That happened quite quickly today. So I can see them all highlighted. These are the things I've just imported from that drawing. Of course, we can't see them yet because we need to configure them. Now they are going to come in on top of these. Now, if I had created my design using the corridor that I exported from Infraworks, I would be able to actually just load in the new design over the top. But because I did not do that design this way, I am going to delete these roads here. Otherwise, we're going to get another one over the top. So I'm going to start off by configuring my terrains. I've brought in the natural surface, which is the surveyed surface. All I need to do is set the geolocation, and that will come in. Next, I'm going to bring in my final design. So this is the survey. The final design surface is going to have things like my lot grading and retaining walls. So I'll bring that one in as well. This note here is telling me that, okay, we've created these surfaces, but they haven't actually been turned on. I can't see them. So I'm going to click yes this time to open up my surface layers palette. You'll notice that the NS and the final surface are here under uncategorized and have been turned off. So I need to say what type of surface they are, and these ones are ground surfaces, which means that the background image and other things can be draped on them. So I'm going to drag them down, and when I do this, I need to make sure that they're in the correct order. So the elevation is the surface from the model builder, and it will be at the bottom. The NS will take over wherever it exists, and then the final surface is the one that's on top. So wherever the final surface exists, that's the one that will be displayed. So with those all turned on, if I click OK now, you can see that it's reloaded, and we can actually start to see in our model here a bit of the road, and we can see that this retaining wall has been designed. And so these are our final surface. I did miss one step there. So this area is sitting quite high because the grading area that I used when I was doing my concept design is still sitting there. So grading areas, they can't be like deprioritized in terms of the order. They will always sit above the ground surfaces. So I need to turn those off, or the other option would be to delete them because they're not part of my detailed design. So here, this is what I've actually designed in Civil 3D. It's looking a lot nicer now. You'll notice that all of my buildings have re-draped onto the new surface as well when I've done that. Right, so surface is done. Our lot grading has all been imported. Next, let's see our corridor. So I'll double click on the roads entry to configure. I need to set the geolocation, so that was MGA 56 in this case, and then I'll come to the Civil 3D tab. Now, every single corridor and alignment, or corridor baseline and alignment, is listed here. They're not all necessarily roads. So I'm going to filter by which ones are and are not corridors. So 1 down to 29 are not corridors. So these are things like alignments that are used for targeting. They're things like the alignments that were used for the drainage. and we don't want to create a road out of those. So that's why I've unticked all of those ones there. All the rest of these are all corridors. So each baseline, these ones here will be the curb returns at the intersections. We want all of those to come in as roads, and they're coming in as corridor component roads. So we have regular component roads, which can be edited in Infraworks, and then we have corridor component roads, which cannot be edited in Infraworks. If you do want to edit a corridor component road, you'd go back to your Civil 3D, make the edit, and then bring that back across. Now I do want to just check my component mapping as well. Here, we're looking at the the assemblies or the sub-assemblies and all of the different links and things that are in here, and basically just setting how they're going to display. Now, I know that my generic link here is actually going to be like my nature strip. So I don't want it to come in as a green. I'm going to switch it over to some grass because that's what my nature strip should look like. The rest of these should be okay. So now that I've picked which alignments and which corridors I want to bring over and how I'm going to import them, I'll close and refresh and let those all load in. So it shouldn't take too long to process, as it is only a small subdivision, but it does, of course, need to convert all of those sub-assemblies and corridors into the road styles and component roads. There we go. They've all been brought in. So I can see all my batters have come in from Civil 3D as well. Oh, it looks like I've got a couple of floaty objects there that haven't draped since I brought in my new surface. But all the batters here, those have all come from Civil 3D. And most of the different links have automatically figured out like between the center line and the lip of the curb has come in with asphalt, and then I've got my concrete curb, my footpath, and I changed so that the nature strip would come in as grass as well. And all of my curb returns have come in nicely as well. If I actually come to the other end of this road here, oh, some of my road buildings are floating. That's simple to fix. I'll just come back over to my data sources panel. These are the buildings that I imported, and I'm simply going to close and refresh, and they should redrape. But I was also able to even bring in that nice cul-de-sac at the end there. Now, if I select one of the roads, you'll notice that most items here are grayed out. I can't change the components. I can't change the cross sections. I can turn on and off line marking, and I can open up the profile view. So here's the profile of my road, though I can't actually edit anything here. It is all locked because I brought them in as corridor component roads. At this point in the design, though, you're likely not looking to really change things. Or I probably should have had a look at those batters and made them not so steep. We're more looking at, let's see what it looks like in the 3D model in this environment and having a look at how we're actually going to display it all and share it with our customers or clients. Now, I did also bring in the pipes and the pipe connectors from Civil 3D. So I'll configure those too. Just setting the geolocation, and for my pipes, I'm going to make them all concrete pipes, which is just the way they look. You'll see that the size of each pipe, it's actually going to read it in out of my DWG. So Pipelines is the pipe itself, and then the pipeline connector, that is all of your pits and connections. I'll just change the manhole to a rectangular one. Okay. And we've even got the Civil 3D tab as well here, so you don't have to import all of your pits and pipes. You can pick and choose which ones. Okay, just give the model a chance to catch back up again. And I'm going to move back down to the other end because this is where all my pits and pipes are. Just a second, it'll do some updating and I should get my nice clean model back again. Okay, so I can already start to see the manholes or the inlets showing up through the surface there. And if I pan down below my surface, now I can actually see my pipes. I can see those structures under the ground. And if I brought in multiple utilities, I'd even be able to see where they cross and do a little bit of like clash detection type thing in Infraworks here. So if you wanted to edit your roads, you would go back to your Civil 3D and then you'd go back to your Infraworks and you can go round and round in circles. So you edit your corridor, you update the connection in Infraworks, then you change the model, and you can re-import that back to Civil 3D and around you can go. Now that we have our model all created, we can see our final design in its 3D glory. We want to share it with the world and tell everyone about this amazing thing that we're building. We can take snapshots and share it that way. We can share it online, so we can create a shared view, which gives us a link and people can view our model in their web browser. Infraworks also has the capability to create videos, and as we've discussed, the links back and forth between the different Autodesk softwares. Today, what I want to talk to you about is the video, though. So we looked at some of the other things, and the video is the one that I haven't discussed. Creating a video in Infraworks is really easy. You've got this storyboard concept, which gives you a whole bunch of different tools. You can create a range of different camera motions. You can create titles and captions. You can control the speed, the how like the cut, if it's going to fade into the next image, things like that. And there's even like sun and sky animations. So let's jump back over to our Infraworks. Now, if you did change your Civil 3D model, it's as simple as coming up and refreshing the connection. So you can either refresh the data source or you can even re-import if you've made any of those changes. Okay. So to create a video, I simply come up to the Present and Share tab, and here are all my presentation options. If I drop that down, the last one there is to create a snapshot. So when I run that, this is just a JPEG still image that I can save. If I create a storyboard, you'll see it pops up at the bottom here. It's already added an item for me even. I will delete that so that I can start from scratch. Now the storyboard is all based on where you're looking or where you're actually what you're viewing on your screen at that particular point in time. So if I come over to here, Or rather, let's start from a top-down view. So if we start here, we can do an overview of our subdivision. And what I'm going to do is I'm then going to zoom in to look at a particular intersection. So I'll add what's called a camera path animation, and it's going to take where you start and where you end, and it's going to do that zoom for you. So if I add that in now, what I'm looking at right now is the first keyframe that has been added to my video. I'll then come down here. I'm going to start by looking at this intersection here, and I'll click the plus button, and that's going to add my second keyframe. So what I've got so far is I'm going to start an overview and then come back down to on the road. I'll then add in for this one a stop motion. So you can see from the list here, there's a variety of different motions you can add. I'm just going to add 1 second of stillness, just so that we don't get quite so motion sick. I can change the duration, I can change the transition, items like that. And then from this point here, I'll add a second camera path. So I'm going to start here and then I will travel. Oh, I'm going to come down to this intersection here. So round about there. Add that frame in. Now, if I play from the beginning, I start, I come down to the road level, pause a second, and then I travel along to the next location. And it's done that using that camera path animation, which it basically automatically does that for you. You can do it manually using things like the pan and the orbit and things like that. There's even options here. You can create a camera path from a component road. So you set that, okay, I'm going to travel along this road as if I was in the car. You've also got your caption and heading. So if I add in this one here, this is a heading. I'll just slide it along so it starts at the very start. And then even like reordering items, it's as simple as dragging them around. And you can even drag them, like extend them to make them go for longer. I'll set the heading to say detailed design. And I can set like the background color as well. And I can even change like where it's going to show up on the screen. So transition in, being at the very start, I'm going to change it to a cut. So if I view that now, you'll see it's got that darkness because I've set it to 50% transparency. I can change the color of that overlay. I can change the text so it's sitting differently. I can drag these markers around here to see exactly, like this is what it's going to look like when I'm at this point in time. So I can make all those different decisions in here. Once I'm happy, I can hit this last button here to export my video, and I can choose which type of file format I'd like to export that to. And now I have a video of my design that I can share with whoever it is that needs to see it.